your captain speaking. You are now aboard the Fantasy Voyage Express. Time to pack your bags and let us take you on a journey to victory.
Come on, y'all, let's take a ride. You ain't gotta say a word, just slide inside. It's time to take your ass on another kind of trip, cause you ain't at the top if you don't got the shit. Grab some chips and a drink to sip and close your eyes and hit that switch. We're going to a place where everybody kick it, kick it, kick it. Yeah, Blitzalytics. Ain't no friends and there ain't no simping, cause there ain't no team about to catch me tripping. Do you gotta get a stack or a third tier back? We got you covered all season to the ship from the draft. Take you to a place where you get that win, give you more than enough to defeat your friends. And if you can't take the heat, get your ass out the kitchen. We on a mission. Come along and ride on this fantasy. Slide, slide, slippity slide. When it's all up on the line, we can ease your mind. Come along and ride on this fantasy. Slide, slide, who ride? If you want to get the dub, you gotta tune in live.
You are now watching Fantasy Voyage, presented by Blitzalytics.com. And here are your hosts, Cody Manning and RobRob.
Welcome into Fantasy Voyage. As always, I'll be your host, RobRob, joined by Mr. Cody Manning right there on my side. How you doing this morning, Cody?
Man, I'm doing pretty well. Just been a strange week for me just because of this Tuesday game. We don't got a Thursday night game tonight. The waiver wire process shifted in a couple leagues, but not in other leagues too. So I know in our 16-team league, I woke up yesterday morning seeing a bunch of people trying to go pick people off waivers, those vultures. But yeah, man, I'm just ready to be back. Happy to be back talking fantasy football with you.
Man, me too. It's crazy. Shout out to those of you that's playing on Fantrax dealing with some trash. I see it all in my fantasy on my Twitter, man. Oh, and it's not just them. Lots of people. Weird week with the scoring thing going down. And,
right, FanDuel went down too.
FanDuel went down too. Yeah, absolutely. It's 2020. It's just not meant to be 2020 unless something F's up, bro. So
you just gotta keep, like I said yesterday to the Blitz crew. Yeah, just keep adjust and adapt and just overcome and keep it pushing.
You have to, right? Keep it pushing, baby. That's the slogan for 2020. We're gonna do like we do every week for you. We're gonna break down some news, then we're gonna jump into some studs and duds. We've got waiver wire targets, trade targets, start sits, and of course the all important streamable defense of the week. So let's jump into the big news. After trying to trade him and that not working out, obviously, the Jets have released Le'Veon Bell. It was a bad signing when they signed him. It continued to look worse and worse as Adam Gase continued to just bury the kid. He's been connected to the Chiefs, Dolphins, Patriots, Bears, and Raiders since his release. However, it does look like it's down to 3 teams. We've got the Bills, Dolphins, and Chiefs, and I'm going to hit you with 2 questions here about Le'Veon. First, let's start with New York. Do you want any part of this New York Jets backfield now that Le'Veon's gone?
No. Anything with Gase, I don't want no part of, especially that offense. But I'll be honest, like, I forget what it might be. There's some league that I am desperate for running back depth right now, and it's like a larger league. So I did actually go put a claim in for Frank Gore on the waivers.
The ageless wonder, man.
Yeah, I'm not excited about it. I just know if injuries happen and I'm desperate for a floor play, that's Gore. But I mean, if anybody's desperate for bench pieces, I would. Michael Pirine probably does offer the upside, but if you can, I would completely avoid the backfield.
I'm still with you. Yeah, no Jets for me. Outside, I think Jamison Crowder's the one. Like, and then past that, give me nothing from New York at this point. That includes the backfield. Again, ageless wonder is going to get some points, but I don't feel like being that guy deciding when. The other thing, obviously, is now let's talk about Le'Veon Bell. And with these 3 teams specifically, because obviously I believe this report that it's down to these 3, Bills, Dolphins, Chiefs. Obviously, you know, if you're a fantasy guy and you spend up for CEH, the last thing you want to see is Le'Veon Bell coming in. Bills have dealt with injuries with Zach Moss, and the Dolphins just always seem to have some room for a running back, especially one who trains down in Miami. So obviously it feels like if he goes to the Chiefs, it's the best for your Le'Veon shares, but kills your CEH. But what do you think between the three teams? Give me a quick rundown of what you can expect from each. Like if he goes to the Bills, Dolphins, or Chiefs, is it a yes or a no for you?
If he goes to the Bills, I'm very intrigued. I was telling you beforehand, that's where I kind of want to see him land. Like you said, Zach Moss, he's been injured this year, and that was actually one of the marks I put on because I did the Bills and the prospect encyclopedia and the weaknesses part of Zach Moss. I said the biggest question with him entering the league is his durability, and we're already seeing that flare up in his first month. And then Devin Singletary, he had that one good solid game last week, but he's always I do love him as a player, but he's always been up and down, but he kind of struggles with pass protection. So that's the one thing people aren't kind of talking about is Le'Veon Bell is a great pass protector, and that's what the Chiefs need as well.
Right.
So that he'll have a role. If I'm a fantasy owner, I would be content with him going to the Bills, but I would also understand he probably splits time with Singletary and maybe Zach Moss later down in the season. The Dolphins, I mean, they got Myles Gaskin, who's been very well. He showed out against the Niners this week, and so I think he would kind of have a role in the offense. But I think if he goes to the Miami, that's like if you're a fantasy football owner, you kind of want to see that because I think he'll dominate the touches out of the backfield. Yeah. And then with KC, he would split reps with CEH, but
he'd only need 3 or 4 touches in one of those games.
Well, that's the thing. I think he would be the red zone guy.
I do too.
That's where it would CEH's value would diminish because he's already kind of struggle. We've seen him kind of struggle sometimes.
Going all the way back to week 1 with the 7-8 times he had it at the goal line. Like if you're the Chiefs, that's the one thing you're missing is what Le'Veon could provide you. I am scared if he goes to the Chiefs. I'm just going to be honest with you guys. Dude's a freaking beast. So, I think I'm a go either way, right? Because to me, if you've been a Le'Veon owner over the Jets' tenure here, it just feels like it's always Gase. We've seen everyone leave Gase and just become studs. I think that continues here, especially with one of those 3 teams. I'm comfortable if I'm a Le'Veon owner with either of those. I'm just doing backflips today because my shares have been wasted all season. So kudos to Le'Veon getting released and ending that chapter with the New York Jets. Moving on, we've got Melvin Gordon in the news, received a DUI, lingering 3-game suspension. Not sure when that would take hold. We'll get to that in a second. Vic Fangio says he isn't sure if he will or will not play this week against the Patriots. I think he's a go. I don't think he gets suspended immediately. I think this is one of those things that kind of lingers on, right? And at some point we'll get more.
It's like I think it's for people that saw the 3-game suspension that was kind of floating around in the fantasy Twitter world.
That's because that's what's in the agreement, right? The
new CBA. I guess I didn't even know this honestly until this was reported. I think by Ben Albright yesterday. That in the new CBA, if the player does get a DUI, they could get up to a 3-game suspension. But again, I don't know the exact details in the CBA, but I would imagine this has to play out in the court. I don't even think his court date for this is until December. So if there's this 3-game suspension, it would be probably more than likely the beginning of next season. But, the team could have some self-disciplinary reasons to not play him this week. This isn't a normal year. It is the pandemic. So players really aren't supposed to be going out doing stuff like that. Apparently, I will say this. I also heard apparently he just went to have dinner with some friends, drank some wine, and then he got pulled over on the way home. And apparently he did call John Elway right after he got pulled over and told him about it. So, but I could see them being limited in his touch. I could see I would be. Let me just say this: if I'm an owner, I would be kind of nervous playing him this week. I'm
nervous playing him anyway. He hasn't had a stellar season. I think he's a full go. I think this is coach speak from Vic Fangio here. You don't want to just be oh yeah, Melvin's going. I don't give a shit he got a DUI. You're kind of well, no, I don't know if he's going to play or not. We're going to let the process play out. That feels like a lot of coach speak to me. So I think if you've trusted him this far, you're gonna roll him. I don't think he has any limit in touches this week. Even again, I'm nervous just playing him because it's Melvin Gordon this season. But again, I could be wrong. But I'm with you. I think it's early next season we actually see this suspension come down. Let's move on. And this is just kind of smoke noise. I'm still not sure what to make of it because Twitter has arguing stories right now. Falcons said to have had one player and staff member confirmed positive for the virus. Obviously, if you're a Falcons or a Vikings owner, you need to monitor the situation. But last I saw, it was only a staff member now that has
it was one player, Marlon Davidson, earlier in the week, and then the NFL over the weekend revised their protocols if somebody does test positive.
Right.
So they already went on this intensive lockdown. The facility was going to be shut down these 2 days anyways, and a staff member confirmed positive, but that doesn't mean the game's off. It's all going to be based on contact tracing. Again, we don't have much details. This was just in the script to be like, hey, if you own a Vikings player, if you own a Falcons player, just watch it throughout the week.
Here's what I'm going to recommend. Normally, I tell you to, leave your flex open, right? That's the rule of thumb every season. Excuse me yet again. I think the rule of thumb for this special season is, should you see that C word report come up, just slide that guy in the flex and wait, right? Just wait until you hear the news, because it's just one of those things. And if it ends up getting pushed back, just be ready to roll. It cost me a week this week. So, guys, if you have lost a week due to this, I get it. I'm right there with you. 2 Titans sitting on my bench happen to be Derrick Henry and Jonnu Smith because I didn't know for sure that they go Tuesday. I get it. It's rough. But, again, just a situation to monitor. No even whispers that the game will be moved around right now. It looks like it's good to go. We are going to talk some brief injuries here. Dak Prescott absolutely destroyed his ankle. Happened to be watching that one live when it happened, and both my ankles shivered and the pain ran up my leg. It was rough to look at. One thing I'm going to say that's non-fantasy related here, I don't want to hear any more shit about Dak Prescott and heart and will and drive and leadership. That dude slammed his ankle on the grass trying to get it to set back. He thought he had dislocated it. I was just like, no, man, that's broke, bro. So I don't know where he ends up, but Dak look, man, he proved to be a leader there for me. Fantasy-wise, we do have to talk about impact with Andy Dalton. Red Rocket comes in as the starting quarterback now. I think you already saw a little bit of that in action with the lack of relationship with Amari Cooper. Amari's numbers were down this week. We'll talk about him later on. But they've got a talented receiving core with Amari. You've got CD. You've still got Michael Gallup. You've got Zeke there. How do you think Andy Dalton being the starting quarterback goes ahead and translates into either up or down for those 4 guys specifically?
I think maybe we're going to see more handoffs with Zeke. I think they may try to lean back on the running game because, Andy Dalton is not as a mobile quarterback as Dak Prescott is. And then with the receivers, I would just remain confident in them. I know I'm going to talk about Amari Cooper's down game this week, but I think eventually he's always kind of been that type of streaky wide receiver anyways. So I wouldn't be surprised.
Right. Remember Raiders years where it was 220 one week and 5 yards the next. This is like what Amari's been known for.
Yeah, so I think my wide receiver confidence remains the same. I mean, he can push the ball down the field. I mean, shoot, we saw this past weekend. And if the matchup's right, even like with those quality of weapons, if the matchup's right like it was this past weekend, I mean, he'd be a streaming quarterback throughout the year for you as well. So I don't see. I mean, he's not Dak Prescott, but I don't see like you're dropping off a cliff bad. Like
he's not Dak Prescott, but he's not Nathan Peterman.
Yeah, exactly.
He can still get it done. Now, here's my thing, and I'll talk about it a little bit later when we get into my trade targets. I think I actually shade Amari season long, and I would trust Michael Gallup more with Andy Dalton. It's just I feel Michael Gallup is more consistent, right? Like as a player. and I would rather lay my eggs in that basket. I think some of the Amari over the time spent with Dak really did make Amari more consistent for fantasy football purposes. He evened out. I think you do, like we mentioned earlier, I think you see Amari go back to those kind of Raiders days with Andy Dalton in tow where it's feast or famine. I no longer think you have like a 12-point option from Amari Cooper. He's getting you 3 or he's getting you 30. And I think that's what you expect moving forward with him. For Cowboys fans and owners of Amari, I'll eat crow, and I'd be happy to be wrong for you folks, but that's just the way I see that working out. And we're going to touch on it here. Dalvin Cook suffered a groin injury, expected to miss this game, have the bye, and then be back. Kind of the story with this, if you didn't have Madison in tow, you just don't know what you're doing. You should always take him with Dalvin Cook there. But again, it looks like he'll be back. He'll miss this one game. You had to have him scheduled in for the bye anyway. Any concern moving forward other than, this is what Dalvin Cook's resume has been for you?
That's basically what you've had to know is with Dalvin Cook, there's always a risk of injury with him. It's just who he is, and like you said, always have Madison if you ever draft him. I'm even going to talk about him later, so I'm ready to get these studs.
Let's do it. Duds. Let's move on to studs and duds, and we're going to do like we do every week. We're going to bounce back and forth. You'll start quarterback, I'll go quarterback, then we'll do running back, wide receiver, and tight end for you. So whenever you're ready, hit me with your stud quarterbacks, Cody.
So my stud, man, guy I've been pushing, I'm even going to push him one last time later and my next segment, but Justin Herbert, man. Number 4 quarterback on the week. He went up against Drew Brees, and I think you could honestly say he looked like the better quarterback for the majority of that night. He went 20 of 34, 264 yards, 4 touchdowns. He only got 8 yards of rushing, and he finished with 27.36 points. Man, he just continues to ball out every week, and I think he's a guy once they get through this. I forgot he was supposed to play this week, but they had to move the bye week this week. So I think he's a guy that you can go put in your lineup and forget it every week. I think he's going to have a high ceiling as a fantasy quarterback. My dud of the week, though, is Matt Ryan, number 25 quarterback. He was 21 of 37, 226 yards, an interception, only 6.94 points. And that's a guy that was probably going mid-rounds in majority of drafts. Somebody that people thought you could just plug and play every week and he's going to produce. And he couldn't even get you a satisfying number in a 2-quarterback league this week. So
No, I don't know what is going on with Atlanta and Matty Ice. I think that relationship is about done. He feels like 49ers quarterback next year to me. Herbert, by the way, how awesome is it that he is the epitome of what John Elway wants in a quarterback, and John Elway gets to watch him dice his shit up twice a year.
Right.
Love
That's
it.
Hilarious.
My stud and dud quarterback. My stud is Ryan Fitzpatrick. Number 3 Fitzmagic, because when he plays like this, it's magic. When he plays bad, it's Patrick. It's tragic. Number 3 quarterback on the week. 22 of 28, 350 yards, 3 touchdowns, 3 rushes, 16 yards, 27.6 points. Absolutely shredded it up. This feels, though, like that big game that happens every time 2 games before Ryan Fitzpatrick lets the young guy take his job, right? So I saw this stat line. I was like, 2 a time, 2 weeks, mark it down. Every time this is how it happens. But kudos to Ryan Fitzpatrick. This is what you get with him. These really, really good games occasionally. My dud quarterback, Joey B, 19 of 30. I forgot to I think he was 20-something. I forgot to write it down. 19 of 30, 183 yards, no touchdowns, 1 pick, 3 rushes, 10 yards, only 5.32 points. Was held in check. Again, great defense. Probably should have known that going into this. Man, these rookie QBs are looking. I think this Herbert and Burrow, they both look legit AF to me, and I am so excited to watch both of those guys going forward. But Herbert did it this week, and Joe did not. So whenever you're ready, let's hit these running backs, Cody.
Yeah, so my stud running back this week is Miles Sanders. He finished as the number 3 running back, 11 rushes, 80 yards, 2 touchdowns, 2 receptions for 19 yards of 4 targets. He had 23.9 points. He just balled out finally for the owners that have been waiting on it as he returned from his injury and just try to get through the poor offensive line that's in front of him. Then my dud of the week is Devin Singletary. He finished as the number 49 running back. He had 11 rushes for only 25 yards. He only had one reception for 8 yards on one target for only 4.3 points. I just expected a better performance out of him, especially going against the Titans, who didn't practice in 2 weeks, and they were missing Jeffrey Simmons because he's on the list for testing positive. So,
and it's games like that make Le'Veon Bell on that list. It's if
that's very true.
You don't have Zach Moss, and this is how you show out Devin Singletary. This is why they're talking to Le'Veon Bell.
Yeah. So he was my dud of the week.
Yeah, I know, full blown. Here's mine. Get real happy. Todd Gurley, number 2 on the week, 14 rushes, 121 yards, 1 touchdown, 4 receptions, 29 yards on 5 targets, finished with an even 25 points. Told you going into the season he wasn't done. I don't think he's the Todd of old, but he still gets it done, man. I think he's still a top 5 back in the league right now as far as fantasy purposes. He showed it to you again this week. It's hard because he'll hit you with this number 2 and then hit you with a top 15 or 20, so it's not consistent as it used to be. But thank you, Todd Gurley. You were in my lineup and got me quite a few points. The dud running backs, this is going to be, I'm going to give you the name Mark Ingram, who finished at number 40. 11 rushes, 57 yards, no touchdowns, no receptions on no targets, 5.7 points. This is more about backfield, though. This feels a lot, and me and Cody talked about it before we go live here. The Ravens' backfield feels a lot like what you're getting with Rams and Patriots. You absolutely have no idea who's going to hit what week, even in a juicy matchup, which of the running backs gets it. I can't trust either Ingram or Dobbins moving forward. Both talented and both could probably handle the workload if the other weren't there, but they're just eating into each other's shares. Cody, really quickly, give me your opinion on that Ravens backfield situation before we move into your wide receivers.
I mean, I just feel like it's so evenly split every week, and I feel like the Ravens also go up quite a bit on these teams, on most teams. And when you look at the snap percentage and everything, and usually Gus Edwards usually ends up out snapping the other two, because they just use him to finish the game and try to keep Ingram and JK fresh for later on the year. Like I said to you earlier, we were talking about it. I just feel like you can't trust them. I know J.K. Dobbins is a long-term play. He's the dynasty play in the backfield. I almost feel like Ingram's kind of getting droppable at this point.
Yeah, at best he's there for a emergency
injury,
added flex, right? It's you don't feel comfortable running him at 1 or 2.
Yeah, I agree.
So hit me with the receivers.
So my stud wide receiver for this past week is just because he won me some money in a league that we do weekly payouts because of my decision I made. It's Mike Williams, number 5 wide receiver. He had 5 receptions, 109 yards, 2 touchdowns on 8 targets. He had 27.9 points for the week. I saw he's available in 60% of leagues, so if he's available on the waiver wire, I'd go pick him up. I know they have a bye week, so hopefully Keenan Allen's healthy, but Keenan Allen did get banged up in this past matchup, and he's known for maybe dealing with ticky-tack injuries in his past. So if Keenan Allen has to miss any time, I mean, Mike Williams can give you these type of wide receiver 1 numbers throughout the year.
Plus that grab where he went up again. Oh my God.
When they should have won the game.
Yeah.
When he climbed the ladder.
Yeah.
The kicker.
Woo,
they should have won it. That's the type of plays he does. Really quick story. The reason why, I wanted to go with the dud because he helped me win some money. I was down 10 points to this guy that had the most points in the league, and I had AJ Brown in the league, but obviously everybody knew there was the worry of we would wake up Tuesday morning and the game was canceled for another positive test, or also AJ Brown was technically questionable for the matchup, so I didn't want to risk it. I wanted to win the money, so I picked him up on the waivers that week for those reasons too, to have a backup plan like we talked about earlier, in case something happened on Sunday or Monday to cancel the game. And I was hoping he would play because he was questionable, but I was like, you know what? I don't know about the Saints defense this year. I'm going to throw Mike in, and then, hey, that's all she wrote.
You know what? I want to give a story, too, because that game cost me a week. I was up 3. My opponent has Drew Brees going. The kicker makes it. I win by 3 points, right? No, he misses it. Brees gets 5, and I lose my first matchup.
Fantasy football, boy.
Right.
Yeah, I'll hit my dud really quick because you kind of already hinted at it. Amari Cooper had a down week. He has finished as a really down week, not just a down
Yeah, a
week.
shitty week. Yeah, really bad.
Yeah, Amari Cooper finished as a number 80 wide receiver. He had one rush for -2 yards, 2 receptions, 23 yards on 4 targets, only 4.1 points. We already talked about the situation, so I'll let you go ahead and roll with yours.
Yeah, for me, I just want to give a shout out to Mapletron. Chase Claypool, number 1 on the week. 7 receptions, 110 yards, 3 touchdowns on 11 targets, 3 rushes, 6 yards to add a 4th touchdown on that. Hit you with 42.6 fantasy points. I absolutely love this kid. Now, normally we wait till the end of the show for questions, but because we are talking Claypool, Miles in the chat asked if he should drop Debo for Claypool or Hardman, and I absolutely would drop him for Claypool. I know that's hard because Debo's the one in San Francisco. Claypool's fighting for who's the one in Pittsburgh, but what I saw was Big Ben forcing the ball to Claypool. That's what he used to do to AB, right? Like, you never saw that with Juju. Juju, it felt natural. When he throws it to Deontay, it's because he's open. He was forcing the ball to Chase Claypool. Once that starts happening and Ben falls in love with the guy, it's over. He's going to be a fantasy relevant receiver for the rest of the season. I think I would do Debo for Claypool, not for Hardman. I'd go ranking them. I'd go Claypool, Debo, Hardman for me. Really quick, Cody, before I do hit my dud, but because we had it about Claypool, how would you rank them? Debo, Claypool, Hardman, those 3.
Oh, I honestly, I lean towards Debo just because of the role. Like, he has a for sure every week role, but I honestly, like, you're selling me on Claypool, where I would consider Claypool because I also don't know if I trust the current quarterback situation in San Francisco. Debo still is technically coming back from an injury. I actually picked up Debo a couple of weeks on the waiver wire, but I don't trust putting him in the lineup till he actually shows he's back. So I'm kind of waiting on that from Debo, but I understand the Claypool play because he is forcing the ball. He does seem like that. And, I mean, Deontay Johnson, as much as a talent he is and as much as talk as he got at the beginning of the season, he's kind of been banged up throughout the year. Seems like he just one hit takes him out of games. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So if he does have to miss games, I just wonder if Claypool's numbers will be consistent every week. That's my biggest worry.
You're definitely not getting 42 points out of Chase Claypool. But again, the reason I say Claypool is I could play Claypool this week and feel comfortable. I'm not going to play Debo this week and feel comfortable. I think it doesn't matter the matchup. Again, you just shouldn't be that big and that athletic to me. So give me all the Claypool shares. I'll touch on my dud really quickly, and then we'll hit your tight ends. My dud of the week, Terry McLaurin, number 65, 3 receptions, 26 yards on 7 targets, 5.6 total points. The saying about Scary Terry used to be he's quarterback proof, and I'm not sure any longer because Kyle Allen looked pretty rough for he got knocked out, and Alex Smith hadn't played football in many moon. I don't know what to do with him moving forward. We'll see how it pans out. He's obviously a great receiver. I think he'll build a relationship with either one of those guys. But Terry McLaurin had a pooper this week. Chase Claypool killed it. So whenever you're ready, Cody, let's hit these tight ends.
Yeah, so my stud he's one of the reasons. This is a guy he showed this week why he was one of the reasons he should be a top 2 tight end drafted in fantasy football, and that is Travis Kelsey, number 1 tight end on the week. 8 receptions, 108 yards, a touchdown on 12 targets, 24.8 points. Just a ball out performance from him, and like we talked about, he's basically a wide receiver 1 on your lineup every week. And then my dud, man, this guy has just been. He is
falling apart, bro.
Like, and this, like, it's almost like no excuse for this guy. I'm gonna go ahead and name it. Zach Ertz, number 42 tight end. 1 reception on 6 yards on 6 targets for 1.6 points. And Dallas Goedert's on the IR. They're banged up at the wide receiver position. So this screams like a Zach Ertz month, and we haven't seen it. I know I talked about, on Cody Talks NFL, and I think we may even brought it up on the Fantasy Voyage. He's kind of in a contract dispute right now, and I don't know if his play's fallen off or if he just is not given like 100% because
like he just doesn't give a shit anymore, right? It feels like it when you're watching him. His routes don't feel as crisp. He doesn't feel like he's going 100.
That's what I'm saying. I got that feeling too. Every time he catches, I'm like, why does it feel like he's not giving his all?
Right. He feels like he's going at about 90%. Like it reminds me of when you saw Randy playing in Oakland, Randy Moss when he was in his Oakland days, and it's like 3 or 4 plays he'd go all out, but you could just feel it the rest. Like he just didn't want to be there. I don't think Zach wants to be there. I say you guys just trade him. Let's do this. Let's watch a world burn this year. Tight ends for me, I'm going to give a thank you yet again to Mr. Manning for throwing out that Jonnu Smith take early on here. Put him on my radar. I end up with him in my fantasy league. Now, again, I don't get to start him this week, so I didn't get these points. If you were bolder than me, though, and left Jonnu in your starting lineup, kudos to you. He finished number 2 on the week, 5 receptions, 40 yards, 2 touchdowns, 21 points. I'm not saying he's the number 1 or 2 tight end in football, but I'm comfortable in saying Jonnu Smith is going to be top 10 most weeks of this fantasy season. Thank you very much again, Cody, for convincing me to snag that up. He's paid dividends ever since. Moving on, my dud tight end of the week is Tyler Higby. I'm going to throw it out there because I told you guys going into the season not to do Tyler Higby like you were doing. Don't kick him up your draft boards. And then he had one good week and everybody came at me on Twitter. Well, guess what, folks? This is exactly why I told you not to do it. The Rams are contending for the playoffs. They do not give a shit about your fantasy team. So from tight end and running back, it will be whoever has the hot hand. You will be left pulling your hair out. The Rams wide receivers are the only thing I trust, and if I need a quarterback on the back end, it's going to be Jared Goff. Other than that, this is what happens with the Rams. They're not going to force feed it to anybody. So anyone who's looking at those running backs, your Cam Akers, your Hendersons, your Browns, and now you've got Higby who's missing out. 2 receptions, 2 targets, 12 yards. Get out of here. This is what I told you were going to get. This is what you're going to get the rest of the year with him. One big game followed by a couple of just nasty dumpy games. So let's move on then into these waiver wire claims where, again, some of these names are shocking, not the least the one you mentioned earlier.
Yeah, so I'm going to be quick with my quarterback ad of the week just because I want to push him below the 50% threshold that I have on here. And by the way, let me go over this again as I do every week in case we have a new listener or two. How my waiver claims work. I literally pull them right before we go online, so I have as close to the best numbers that we can have. They have to be available in more than 50% of leagues rostered on Yahoo. So let me go ahead and get on this. Quarterback, Justin Herbert. Like I said, I think he's a week in and week out play at this point until he maybe hits a rookie wall. That always could happen. But, I mean, with his rushing ability and his ability to stretch the field with his arm, I like his upside every week as a week in and week out quarterback going forward. And he does have some good matchups. That's why I was bringing it up the last couple of weeks, except I think they were supposed to face the Jets and they got the Dolphins and then the Jaguars or somebody like that, 3-game stretch. And then my running back waiver wire ad of the week is, we talked about him earlier, Alexander Madison. I didn't know he's available in 63% of leagues on Yahoo. Yeah, and he's more of a 1-week play because, we already talked about, Dalvin Cook is going to be out this week. And he did this past week have 20 rushes for 112 yards. He had 3 receptions on 24 yards on 3 targets. Go get him right now if you're a Dalvin Cook owner and he's on the waiver wires. That doesn't make any sense. And honestly, he's one of the top 3 or 4 premium handcuffs in the league. So he should be rostered in most leagues. Yeah, absolutely. To be quite honest. My wide receiver ad of the week is Brandon Cooks. He was available in 57% of the leagues. He had 8 receptions, 161 yards, 1 touchdown on 12 targets. Now, I do want to say I think he's more matchup based on who the team they're facing. They had a great matchup this past week against Jacksonville. But something with Brandon Cooks, I know when we talked about him earlier in the season when he was listed as a dud multiple times, I did feel like with the lack of the offseason, he was going to need that time to develop the chemistry with Deshaun Watson. And if this is any indication that the chemistry has been developed, and if this can sustain, he could be that wide receiver 2 with wide receiver 1 numbers every week for you. So I think he should definitely be picked up, especially, now that we're hitting the buys and, maybe potential postponements, stuff like that. And then my tight end of the week, I'm going to go ahead and spoiler.
There's just not a lot out there, right, Coach?
There's not a lot out there, but he is spoiler. He is a guy you might not want to play this week unless you're desperate at the tight end position, which most people probably are. But I did list Jimmy Graham. He's available in 59% of the leagues. This past week, he had 3 receptions for 33 yards, a touchdown. That touchdown was pretty sick. The one-handed snag in the back of the end zone on 5 targets. So I just think he's a guy that Nick Foles is looking to force the ball his way. Nick Foles has been known from dating back to Philadelphia with Zach Ertz to throw the ball to the tight end position. So I think he's a quality streaming tight end that can give you tight end 1 weeks throughout the year. But there are going to be his matchups where if it's not a great matchup like it was a couple weeks ago against the Colts, he's going to underperform. And then my flex ad of the week is Preston Williams. He's available in 77% of the leagues. This past week, he had 4 receptions, 106 yards, 1 touchdown on 5 targets. I view him more as a depth ad, a bench piece ad that you can play in the wide receiver 3 flex spot based on the matchup. He's a guy that should definitely be on your roster because if Devontae Parker, who's known for getting ticky-tack injuries in his career, if he does get hurt, Preston Williams can kind of slide up into that wide receiver 2 range. So I think Preston Williams is definitely worth an ad on your bench. Yeah. So again, let me go over those names. Quarterback Justin Herbert, running back Alexander Madison, wide receiver Brandon Cooks, tight end Jimmy Graham, and flex is Preston Williams.
Love those names, especially Herb, man. You got to go get some Herbert. I'm falling in love with that guy, dude. Like this, I loved what I've seen. He's so fun to watch. I wasn't sure about that.
And keep in mind, he did that going against Patrick Mahomes, Tom Brady, and the Saints,
and
Drew Brees.
Like let me just play Studley in view of these 3 Hall of Famers here consecutively. So yeah, great start to his career. I'll hit you with trade targets, and it's going to be really quick. Le'Veon Bell, get him. Just get him. His owner's probably been shopping him anyway, though it's probably hard now that he's getting traded. Most owners are going to sit and see where he goes. Get him if you can, though, because, again, I think that was Gase effect. I think Le'Veon Bell goes back to top 10, top 15 weekly from the position. Number 2, Keenan Allen. It appears Justin Herbert loves him just as much as I love Justin Herbert right now. He did get banged up, so I'm thinking maybe that injury may have driven his price down a little bit. See if you can vulture in there and steal a Keenan Allen. Talked about Deebo Samuel a little earlier, how I don't feel comfortable starting him. Most of his owners don't either, so I think maybe you try to sneak in there and steal Deebo for the cheap. This next one is speculative. Now, I'm going to say Myles Gaskin. He's a top 15 running back, and he's only got 1 touchdown on the season, so get him before he starts scoring touchdowns. However, if Le'Veon Bell goes to Miami, he becomes the bell cow. I think Gaskin kind of drops way down and maybe not a trade target for you. But again, if Le'Veon goes anywhere other than Miami, go ahead and wrap your hands on Myles Gaskin and pull him to your team. And my number 5 is Michael Gallup. I won't even really touch too much on it. I told you earlier, this is a gut feeling call. I think he's the guy that Dalton goes to. I think you see Amari Cooper be more inconsistent, and I think Michael Gallup becomes the consistent wide receiver out of the 3. So again, Le'Veon Bell, Keenan Allen, Deebo Samuel, Myles Gaskin, and then Michael Gallup. And hey, Jack's in the chat. Hi, Jack. Hi, Jack. Jack's got a question here, and I'm going to answer these just because I feel like it, Cody, and I'm the host.
We don't. I don't mind us if we answer questions throughout the episode.
Do you drop JK or do you remain patient?
I think it just depends on who's on the waiver wire.
Right, and what your team is made of if you have that spot.
Because let me say this. I said it from the beginning how I viewed JK back when we did our AFC North preview when we were known as the Fantasy Football Hot Seat, that I would draft JK for the second half of the season, knowing that he's going to be on the bench for at least the first 8 weeks.
Right.
Because all it takes is this weekend Gus Edwards gets nicked up, Mark Ingram gets nicked up, and then it's his backfield.
Right.
So.
And as soon as it's his, they're, like I said earlier, they're both talented enough to hold down that position, him or Ingram. It's just they're splitting carry. So if one goes away, the other one's invaluable.
So. Yeah. And Yeah. So,
all right, we got
this?
one more question, and then we're going to roll into our start and sits, and I'm going to use this one as the transition.
That's
JB
what I
with a
was
whole
about.
lot of numbers and letters, Port Credit SS, asked Matthew Stafford or Kirk Cousins. Well, I'll go ahead and I'll tell you right now, Kirk Cousins is my start of the week from the position. Atlanta is absolute butthole when it comes to guarding the quarterback position. They've given up 30.2 points per game. I'll tell you what, when the matchup's that juicy, I got to take it. I am not a Kirk Cousins believer, but again, that matchup is creme de la creme. Give me Kirk Cousins as my start of the week, so definitely going to take him over Stafford. I come to you really quickly for your answer, Stafford or Cousins?
Well, here's the thing. I did give you a layup this morning on the script by leaving Kirk there. I'm definitely all about streaming Kirk this week, because I think I am going to do it in one of my larger leagues just because of the matchup. And not only that, I view that the Vikings and the Falcons could get in like a shootout back and forth type of matchup. While I could technically kind of see the Lions maybe coming off a bye, being fresh and beating up on the Jaguars, and like they kind of pull back in the second half. But with that being said, I'm also streaming Stafford in a different league. Matthew Stafford is my start this week from the quarterback position, especially when we're coming on 4 buys this week. Dak Prescott's hurt. I think Matthew Stafford is a quality streaming quarterback this week against the Jaguars. Jacksonville has given up the 8th most points per game to the quarterback position. They give up 21.1 points per game to quarterbacks this year. I know like most quarterbacks are throwing well over 70% completion percentage against the Jaguars. So I think the Jaguars kind of are a streaming defense as far as the quarterback position.
I'll tell you what, so JB, you're in a good spot. Both great matchups. Again though, that Kirk one is juicy. Atlanta's just that bad. It just that bad. So hit us with your sit, and then we'll do my sit, and we'll continue as traditional here.
That's fine. So my sit this week, he's been a quality streaming quarterback for the past couple of weeks, but I think it's time to look at elsewhere than Teddy Bridgewater. The Bridgewater is going against the Bears this week. Chicago's got a very stout defense. They actually give up the second least points per game to the quarterback position. They only give up 12.1 points per game through the first 5 weeks this year. So I'm not looking to stream Teddy two gloves.
Yeah, Teddy Two Gloves. I love when the players have mafia nicknames. Those are my favorite. I'm gonna give you my sit QB real quick. It's Joey B. The Colts are the best against the position, only 10.7 points per game. What the hell's going on with your Colts, Cody? That defense is dominant. Offense just can't get it done. But again, the defense can. Joe Burrow's gonna have some highlight plays, but I can't roll him out this week against that amazing Colts defense. Let's go ahead then and hit your start and sit running backs, Cody.
So my start this week, even though the Bears have struggled to run the ball the past couple of weeks against very good defenses, like you talked about, the Colts and the Bucs run defense, I think David Montgomery is set for a bounce back week against the Panthers. Carolina gives up the 3rd most points per game to the running back position. They give up 27.4 points. And there's no competition. I know they like to hand off the ball to Cordero Patterson every once in a while, but it's his backfield, and I think he has a potential with this matchup to give you an RB1 type of week. And then my sit is those Bellatrix, any Patriots running back. I don't care if it's Damian Harris, Rex Burkhead, James White, or even J.J. Taylor if you're in like a 22-person man league or something like that. Sit the Patriots running backs there. You just never know who's going to dominate the touches. But even if they do, they're going against the Broncos this week. And I was kind of surprised to see this when I did the research last night. Denver gives up the least amount of points per game to the running back position in fantasy football this year, only 12.1 points per game. And then you're talking about a backfield that it's always a guesswork who's going to go off that week. If you can, I would avoid playing any Patriots running backs against the Broncos.
Not a bad call there, my friend. My start of the week, James Robinson. Detroit's the worst at the position, 28.6 points per game. That's his job down there in Jacksonville. Not really much to say about it. I like the kid. He showed some flashes. And again, I think you feel comfortable because Detroit's terrible to the running back position. So not much more need be said. My sit. I'm going to do this every week, guys. Any Rams running back. We're playing the freaking 49ers, second best at the position, only 13.1 points per game given up. I don't know which one of them. One of them's going to get a touchdown. It's either going to be Brown, Henderson, or Akers. We don't know. One of them probably gets it. This feels like a big Bobby Trees game for me, so I'm not trusting any of the three Rams running backs. A la what Cody said about the Patriots. You've got three teams now. You got the Patriots, the Rams, Ravens. I'm not trusting the backfield of 83, especially against a defense like the 49ers have. Cody, tell me about your start and sit wide receivers.
So my start, and I put Jarvis Landry, and maybe you can say Odell. I know some people debate him every week, but I think with the season he's having, you should probably be playing an Odell Beckham, right, no matter what. So I did list Jarvis Landry against the Steelers this week. Pittsburgh, man, they're struggling to cover wide receivers. I didn't realize they're one of the worst defenses, according to fantasy numbers anyways. They give up the fifth most points per game to the wide receiver position. Wide receivers are getting 30 points a game against the Steelers. So I think Jarvis Landry is a great play this week. And obviously with the Steelers defense is still good. Don't get me wrong. And that's a reason why I say you can play Jarvis Landry, because I think Baker's going to be looking for a safety valve throughout the weekend. And I think that can be juice. Then my sit of the week, I'm naming two names here. Deebo Samuel and Brandon Ayuk against the Rams. Again, I talked about it earlier. I picked up Deebo off the waivers a couple weeks ago, but I'm waiting for him to have his solid performance before I'm comfortable playing him.
And it ain't coming against Jalen.
Yeah, exactly. The Rams, they're the best defense as far as fantasy-wise against the wide receiver position. They're only giving up 14.7 points per game to wide receivers. So I would avoid playing Deebo Samuel and Brandon Ayuk this week.
Yeah, absolutely. You definitely should do that. My start of the week, Justin Jefferson. Again, we're going to continue on with my love affair with Kirk this week in the juicy matchup. Atlanta gives up the most points to the quarterback. They give up the seventh most to the wide receiver position at 27.8 points per game. Justin Jefferson has flashed huge games. I think at the bare minimum, you're looking at, 5-6 grabs. You're probably looking 70, 80 yards of potential touchdown, all the way up to something like 8 to 10 to 12 grabs for 150 yards. This guy can be absolutely explosive. Given this matchup, I think Atlanta tries to minimize the damage done by Adam Thielen. So I think that opens up things for Justin Jefferson. I think he's going to have one of his big games this week. My sit of the week, I've just shit on the guy all episode, so let's continue it. Amari Cooper, Arizona gives up the fourth fewest points to the position at only 18.1 points per game. Again, I'm going to rank them in this order. Michael Gallup has the best game, CeeDee Lamb has the second best game, and Amari Cooper looks like a Raider again. So whenever you're ready, Cody, man, we've got tight ends to talk about, and then the most important part of the show.
All right, so my start at the tight end position, we finally saw him. I wouldn't call it a breakout game, but he actually finally put some points on the board that I was waiting for. I was about to cut. I swear I was about to cut him, or I was trying to trade him.
You and so many guys are just
Evan Ingram against the football team. Washington, they do give up the third most points per game to tight ends at 12.8. So I think he's a good play this week from the tight end position. I think after last week, I'm hoping he's going to put on a string of performances for his owners this week. But I'm not going to lie. If he does do well this week, I might even, you know me, I don't do much trades, but I might consider just taking advantage of the moment and getting rid of him.
Sell high, baby. Sell high.
Yeah. And then my sit of the week, even though I told you to maybe possibly pick him up, maybe more of a caution play, but maybe you just sit him on your bench for the next week. But Jimmy Graham against the Panthers. Panthers do give up the third least amount of points per game to the tight ends this year. They only give up 4.5 points to the tight end position. I think it's because our boy Jeremy Chin is covering the tight ends there in Carolina. But yeah, so I would avoid playing Jimmy Graham this week if you can, but I still think he's a good quality waiver wire pickup from going forward just because Nick Foles will look for him.
And that position is dummy thin.
Yeah.
I'll hit you with mine real quick. Start of the week's going to be TJ Hawkinson. This is a gut feeling. I think he's got touchdown written all over him in this matchup. Jags are the sixth worst at the position at 11.8 points per game, which tells you the position's just not scoring a lot, and it's even worse than that because it's so damn top heavy with the top two guys already dropping 20 and 30 point weeks. It's skewing that even. So I think you're pretty much touchdown dependent anytime you get past Kelsey, a Kittle. Jonnu has been good this year, but I think you're touchdown dependent on just about anybody else, and I think Hawk gets one this week. It feels like it in my bones that it's scripted that way. And then my sit is going to be any Bucs tight end. Throw a name out there. Don't care. Don't start him. The Packers are sixth best at the position, only 4.8 points per game. And if I'm not wrong, Cody, you're the Bucs beat writer for Blitz. I've heard we've got a full wide receiver core this week, right? In Tampa?
I'm not. I think Chris Godwin is practicing limited. I'm not sure. I am not. Like I said, this has been a super weird week, so I'm not really caught up on the injury reports quite. Right. I'll be doing that tonight.
I think, if I'm not mistaken, they're all three going to roll this week. And if that's the case, why am I going to throw it to Gronk's old ass when I got those guys out there? I'm again. It's going to be a fun game though. Two of the goats of all time, man. A-Rod versus Tom Brady. Tune into that one for sure. Before we get into streamable defenses, I will tell you, if you're in the chat, go ahead and hit us up with any of your questions while Cody's giving you this, and then we will answer those for you at the end of the show. And, of course, here we go with the most important reason to come watch the show, the only reason we have any fans at all, Cody's top 5 streamable defenses of the week, whenever you're ready, brother.
Yeah, so my top 5 streamable defenses this week, I definitely think you can roll with the Dolphins defense against the Jets. It's already been that Sam Darnold is ruled out, so you got an old Joe Flacco against the playing quarterback position. You're hearing about the reports this morning that the Jets locker room, which I don't know why it's now. I think it happened a long time ago, but they're losing confidence in Adam Gase.
How have you not lost it already?
Yeah. So I saw that this morning. I'm like, I thought that happened a year ago.
We all lost confidence the day he was hired.
And then it's like, if I could just poke one last joke at the Jets, it's like, I know technically the opt-out date was over a month ago, but I think the Jets might be opting out mentally going forward. So I'm taking the Dolphins defense against the Jets all day. I think I've already done that in most of my leagues. And then my next one is the Patriots against the Broncos. The Broncos, they do have Drew Lock. I think he's going to be back this week. But with that being said, it's New England. It's Bill Belichick coming off a bye week. He's had 2 weeks to prepare for this team. And then this is basically Drew Lock's rookie year. He hasn't even played 16 games. And, history shows first-time young rookie quarterbacks, or whatever you want to call them, young, unexperienced quarterbacks that play their first game in Foxborough typically struggle very bad. So I see a lot of turnover potential and sack potential. So I like the Patriots as a streaming defense. My third defense is the Colts against the Bengals. The Colts defense has been proved to be one of the better defenses in the league. They're a high floor play at this point where you can play them, and you can even play them like last week against the Browns, and they'll still find ways to give you a good amount of points. And they are going against Joe, no slight to Joe, but they're going against a rookie quarterback. We saw what the Baltimore Ravens did against him last week. That line that's protecting him is just atrocious. I hope he can just survive the season. So there's a lot of sack and turnover potential this week. My fourth defense is the Ravens against the Eagles. I do like that matchup based on the Ravens' great defensive front that's going against a super banged up Eagles line. Carson Wentz is having a up and down year. He might get some of his receivers back this week, but I don't think that matters. I think I'm betting on a lot of sacks from the Ravens defense, and then maybe a potential, turnover or two that could lead to points. Now, my number 5 one is this is like a super desperate streamable team. Yeah. Like you're in a 16-team league like we do. But I still like it because the Giants defense isn't that awful. But I'm going Giants defense against the football team. The Washington team struggles to move the ball and put up consistent points throughout the year. Kyle Allen's
2 words. Troy Reader ate them up. Dude, Reader ate them up. And I get Donald with 3 sacks, but Reader, come on, man.
Yeah, and then that's the thing. But that's one of the solid points about the Giants defense is that they got Dexter Lawrence and Leonard Williams in the middle, and those guys are actually looking pretty good this year. So those 2 guys are probably going to blow up the middle of the line and get sack potential. And dude, I saw a stat the combined yards per attempt between Kyle Allen and Alex Smith was just non-existent. So I'm all about. I think the football team, until proven otherwise, I think they're a team you can like go pluck any type of defense and play them confidently, no matter how bad that defense is.
Yeah, it's just.
But here's the thing. I like things on like. Here's the thing. Scary Terry McLaurin. You talked about him having a bad game. He's probably going to struggle because if you go look at the numbers, James Bradbury for the Giants have been shutting down wide receivers every week. Look what he did to Amari Cooper last week, and he did it to other players throughout the year. So I like this. I like that as a sneaky good streamable defense.
Yeah, sneaky deep, playing a large league. You got to look for stuff like that, and that's exactly what you did. You found a wrinkle here where even a not great defense can score you some points. So thank you for that. It doesn't look like we have any additional questions in the chat, so we're going to go ahead and wrap it up. Get on out of here. Get to the day jobs, if you will. I'm gonna throw it to you, Cody, because I don't have to do a commercial when you're on the screen. So go ahead and hit him whenever you're ready, brother.
Yeah, so let's start with the biggest thing, guys. As we all know, there's injuries happen that we have to talk about every week. There's positive tests that happen, postponements, all this stuff. So it's a prospect encyclopedia. This thing's so great. You get to learn about all the players that we're seeing flash, like a Justin Jefferson, Justin Herbert's in this book. But then there's underlying guys that come out and perform and you never heard of. Like, go back, I don't know, because I wrote the Bucs section. Go back to that Bucs and Bears game last Thursday. You saw a guy like Tyler Johnson take advantage of the moment and make some plays. Even go to the tight end position. There's a guy named Tanner Hudson that's in this book. So you get to hear about all types of names. It's a prospect encyclopedia. It's a top 22 prospects for all 32 teams from the last 3 draft classes that have less than 12 regular career starts in the league. And this hard copy is only $35. Just go to blitzalytics.com/shop to order it. PDF is only $15, or you can get an individual team PDF for $5. So that's how you guys can throw us some support. That's how we're just trying to push this baby because it's such a great thing to have on game day. And then other than
95% hit rate.
Yeah. Oh yeah. That's the thing. That's another thing we can get into. But yeah, move on. Make sure if you liked this episode, like the episode. Also, if you haven't subscribed to the YouTube channel, so you know when any of our shows do go live. But if you do miss an episode, the audio is always going to be put on the Blitzalytics Podcast Network, where all of our YouTube shows also go on there as well. As a heads up, Cody Talks NFL, it is on schedule right now for tomorrow around this same time, but there's a lot of construction going on in my place. I'm going to be honest, I had some boys over for Sunday football.
Got to Philip Rivers hole.
Yeah, and we were having a good time listening to music, and my wall is about as strong as Philip Rivers' arm. Got a little dent in there, so I got to have the apartment come fix that this week. And they told me they were going to come tomorrow, and I asked them what time. They haven't told me. I'm trying to figure that out. So there's a chance that I might go live at some point tomorrow, maybe even Saturday if I talk to Roy as far as when he's doing the Steel City sermon, or I might just have to record it on my own and we'll get it uploaded. Don't worry, there will be a Cody Talks NFL that will be coming in the coming days. But also football happy hour. We'll be back next Tuesday at 9 p.m. Now that's barring that we don't get a Tuesday game too, right? Like, Falcons, Vikings get pushed to Tuesday. So
2020,
we're going to hope to be back. That's why we want you guys to subscribe to the Blitzalytics Podcast Network and our YouTube channel, just so you know when we go live, because just like the NFL, we're having to adjust our schedule on the fly as well. So yeah, that's all I got. I obviously do my Bucs articles every week. Those usually go out now that they had their Thursday night game. You can look for those to be on the website by Friday nights. I usually posted the social media the following day. But I think that's all I got to plug. And then if you want to ask me any fantasy questions at Cody Talks NFL, DM at me, whatever you need, and I'll respond.
Same thing. DMs are open. Even if we don't follow each other, you can follow me at RobRob Graphics on Twitter. That's the one I respond to the most. Speaking of Twitter, here over the next couple days, you're going to see I've got some new shirt designs coming up because Christmas is coming. couple of really dope ones getting ready to come out, especially if you're a 90s baby. So stay tuned for that. Want to thank Cody again for co-hosting here. Want to thank all you guys for tuning in, especially Superfan Jay. Hi, Superfan Jay. That's going to do it all for the show. Want to thank you so much for tuning into Fantasy Voyage presented by Blitzalytics.com. And as always, we look forward to talking to you next week.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's your captain speaking. You are now aboard the Fantasy Voyage Express. Time to pack your bags and let us take you on a journey to victory.
Come on, y'all, let's take a ride. You ain't gotta say a word, just slide inside. It's time to take your ass on another kind of trip, cause you ain't at the top if you don't got the shit. Grab some chips and a drink to sip and close your eyes and hit that switch. We're going to a place where everybody kick it, yeah, Blitzalytics. Ain't no friends and there ain't no simping, cause there ain't no team about to catch me tripping. Do you gotta get a stack or a third tier back? We got you covered all season to the ship from the draft. Take you to a place where you get that win, give you more than enough to defeat your friends. And if you can't take the heat, get your ass out the kitchen. We on a mission. Come along and ride on this fantasy. Slide, slide, slippity slide. When it's all up on the line, we can ease your mind. Come along and ride on this fantasy. Slide, slide, who ride? If you wanna get the dub, you gotta tune in live.
You are now watching Fantasy Voyage presented by Blitzalytics.com. And here are your hosts, Cody Manning and RobRob.